Hello students, first of all wish you a very happy 2019 and this is my first video post for 2019. A lot of students have been asking me to post a tutorial on the topic of early cancellation of forward contracts in relation to foreign exchange. Before we solve the problem on this, first let us understand what happens when a customer enters into a forward contract. When a customer enters into a forward contract with the bank, in order to cover itself, enters into another forward contract in the market to offset its transaction with the customer. Confused? Let's look at it again. Let us say customer A enters into a forward contract to sell the dollars to the bank. The bank will immediately enter into another contract in the market to sell the dollar forward. This is because the bank, when it enters into a forward contract with the customer, is committing itself to take delivery of dollars at a particular rate on a particular date, that is the forward date. What's the bank going to do with the dollars? Obviously, it's going to sell it. But then, what happens if the rate of dollar on the forward date has crashed? Then the bank will obviously incur a loss. Therefore, in order to protect itself from such a potential loss, it immediately enters into an offsetting transaction in the market. Okay, now that we have understood that, let us move forward and try to understand this, with an example. Let us presume that today is 1st Jan 2019 and X, who's an exporter, enters into a forward contract to sell $100,000 due on 31st March 2019 at a contracted rate of 72.30 rupees to the dollar. And on 1st Feb 2019, that is before the due date, he approaches the bank and requests for cancellation of forward contract. And on 1st Feb, the spot rate of dollar was rupees 71.30 to the dollar, and 2-month forward expiring on 31st March was being quoted at rupees 72 and 72.1. Now that's the bid ask rate. Now let's look at what will be the transactions that will happen on 1st Jan. Number 1, customer will enter into a forward contract to sell forward, that is 31st March at 72.30. Which also means that the bank is entering into a forward contract to buy the dollars from customer at 72.3. Number 2, now to offset the above transaction, that is this transaction, the bank will enter into a forward sale contract for 31st March at 72.30. Okay, now that we have seen what happens on 1st Jan, let us see what happens on 1st Feb when the customer comes to the bank for the early cancellation. Now, on 1st Feb, the customer walks into the bank and says that he wants to cancel the transaction. If the transaction had gone smoothly, let us see what would have happened. That is, if there was no cancellation and if the transaction was settled on 31st March as scheduled, what would have happened? The dollar would have come in from the customer, the bank would have received the dollar, and the bank would have then delivered the dollars to honor this contract. But now that is not happening. What is happening now is the customer is coming on the 1st Feb and says that he wants to cancel the transaction. Now the bank is in a tight situation because it now knows that it cannot honor its commitment to deliver the dollar for this transaction. So what will it do? Simple. It will enter into a forward contract to buy the requisite dollars for 31st March. That is a 2-month forward. Remember, we are on 1st Feb now. Now, this forward transaction will be entered into at the 2-month forward rate prevailing on 1st Feb. Here it is important to know something. That when the bank is buying the forward, it will enter into the market as a buyer. Hence, it can only buy the dollars at the ask rate which is being quoted to it in the market. So, in effect, if we look at these two transactions, what has actually happened is that the bank has sold the dollar for 31st March at 72.3, that is this, and purchased the same at 72.1, that is this, thereby making a profit of 0.20 per dollar, resulting in a total profit of rupees 20,000 on $100,000. Now, who does this profit belongs to? Obviously, it belongs to the customer, because had there been a loss, it would have also been passed on to the customer. So if the loss belongs to the customer, the profit should also belong to him. Now, I hope that this short tutorial has helped you understand the mechanics of the early cancellation. There are of course other scenarios like early extension, cancellation, etc. Now, I'll be posting the video as and when time permits, which I hope shall be very soon. So happy studying, ciao, and all of you have a fantastic new year.